Hi guys, welcome to part 2 of Lady Loki. So as you can kind of see, we're just going to pick up where we left off. I did do a little bit more work on the hair. After all, it's just, making it black. We'll fill in the details a little bit later. But today we're actually going to keep working on the face, filling in more of the details there, filling the lips, the eyes, um, finishing up the flesh tones, and putting those layers on there. So that's what we're gonna focus on today. I hope you guys enjoyed the first video, but here's Lady Loki Part 2. So now that everything is dry, so to speak, now we can start adding in the extra layers. And with that is you're able to see a little bit more of the contrast. You're able to see a little bit more of the shade of the shadows and the dark and the darker values. So just here. Typically what I like to do is I like to add a lot of darker, warmer tones. I use a lot of burnt umbers, raw siennas, yellow ochres. I don't use your typical greens and your blues in most cases. Usually I get the darker values first, and then I work up to your other colors. So now the tricky part about watercolors is sometimes, especially when it is really wet, you know, the paint has a tendency to what we like to call bleeding. So it bleeds into um, the other colors, and unfortunately, that's where the layer upon layer comes in. Um, if you use too much water, you end up actually, you know, bleeding in the whole thing. And then you got to kind of improvise and really make it look the way it needed to look. Like and now, I kind of accidentally used a little too much brown, and that's on me. I got a little eager, a little overexcited to paint with you guys today, so I'm already making a lot of mistakes, but it's okay because the great part about this is we can easily um, go in and it's fixable. It's totally fixable. It just means there might be a part 5. Most of the time when I'm doing large, that's kind of why I like working on smaller paintings nowadays, because one, I can get them done faster, and two, there's a little bit less um, extravagant detail to it. You don't run the risk of making a lot of mistakes. So that's why I don't do a lot of bigger paintings. I usually reserve bigger paintings um, for special occasions. Case in point. So I don't do them that much, um, which is fine. I mean, people paint whatever they want to paint. They paint whatever's comfortable to them. and you do what you do. You paint what you enjoy. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be like this standard thing where no, 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 you have to paint it this way. Like, so I'm just gonna stop talking for just a second and kind of get my regain my thoughts. Just because a lot of paint going on, not a lot of, I'm making a mess more than I'm fixing. So that'll do it. All right, I think I fixed it. At least fixing it to the point that I'm happy with it. Most artists would probably say something, like no, 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 you need to fix this, you need to do this, and it's really more, in my opinion, it's really more about, am I happy with it, or are you happy with it? If you're at a point where you're looking at something that you're working on, and you say, you know what, I'm happy with this, perfect, then don't do any more. You do any more, you do end up risking making a bigger mess and then getting frustrated with it. It's always getting to that fine point, that line where you look at it and you say, okay, I'm content with this. I can move on. You know, we can always work on it later. There's always other steps. Whereas my steps is I really like doing pen and ink on my watercolors as well, so I can always go back in and fix it there. But it's like I said, it's getting to that point where you're able to say, okay, I'm stopping. I'm happy with this. I'm gonna move on because, like I said before, you work on one thing over and over again, it's gonna turn into mud, and then you're gonna be angry about it, and then you're gonna have to throw it away and start over. I don't want to do that. No, I definitely don't want to do Okay. Okay. So typically, what I like to do is, try to get back on, trying to get back on track. Is I add a lot of the warmer tones first. So then, when I go back and do my darker tones, they just blend in a little bit better. So that's kind of where the process it takes its time. It's a longer process because you're doing this in layers, and some parts I've actually have really messed up on, and other parts I'm just really over eager to show you guys and to really finish and um, to get going, but also while trying to be informative and stuff like that. And sometimes it's hard. I mean, it really is. And this is my first attempt at doing something like this, so I want to make a good first impression. I want to be able to, um, make sure you guys come back and you watch more and stuff. So on the one hand, I'm nervous. On the other hand, I want you guys to like it and be informative about it and enjoy it. So I think that's another thing. It's just putting a lot of pressure on myself to, you know, you produce something good when I should just really be sitting back and having fun with it. And for the most part, I am. I really am having fun with it because it's something new. This is getting out of my comfort zone and exploring new things. So, like I was saying, if you guys haven't seen Loki yet, you need to. It's such a good show. Such a good show. By far, one of the better ones, I think. Now, one typical artist, watercolor artist, um, tools or rules of the trade. I should say rule. It's like an unwritten um, rule. Don't use white. I use white. I use white all the time. So if you ever meet one of those watercolor purists, they'll always tell you, never use the white. Ever, ever, ever. Nah, no, I'm going to use it. I use white on almost everything. It's like, so when we get to a little further down into the project, um, I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. Um, but I use a lot of white to not only add the highlights, but really to fix certain things. So any kind of watercolor artist will tell you, don't use white, don't listen to them. Like, then you just get to, the snobs. Because it's really, again, it's always about finding your own voice. It's about finding your own sense of style. It's about finding what works for you, what you like. Best piece of advice I always give people who are wanting to get into watercolor is um, do not do it to think that you're going to make money. There's no money in this. Unless you're really, really well established, really, really, really popular, really, really well known, you know, there's not a lot of money in it. So, you have to do it because you just want to do it. You love doing it. That's it. You find something, you find a style that works for you. So I've come to fit, I've like me personally, I look at my style is really all over the place. It's really kind of more um, non-traditional, definitely very non-traditional. I'm basically all over the place. I use only the bare minimum of brushes, where most artists will use every brush that they can find. And I make it work. I make it work for myself. Is it, you know, the Louvre worthy? Probably not. Does it work for me? Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So, being a former uh, art student, and um, I'm totally open for any kind of critiques, because the great part about critiques, especially if they're positive critiques, where people are known to have really, negative critiques um, and stuff like that. Always, you know, go for positive critiques. It's like, well, this is good, but you could do this X, Y, and Z. And I thrive on that just because I want to improve my experience. I want to improve my craft. I want to improve my style. And I like I said, I thrive on um, getting critiques about my work um, because that's how you get better. You get better by experiencing um, a critique. If somebody says, this looks good, but you need to do this, or this looks good, but you need to add this, so forth and so on. So it's like, oh yes, fantastic, that's a great idea. Why didn't I think of that? That's why you get critiques, because you didn't think of that. So if you have positive critiques, um, highly recommend it. So if there's anybody on here that would like to critique it, that would like to critique what I've been doing so far, by all means, please put in the comments below. Um, Share your opinions. Be nice about it. Um, Tell me what I could do differently. Tell me what I should try. What kind of what kind of things I should, what direction I should go in, and stuff like that. Okay, so I'm kind of running out of time, but so I want to try and get her lips done today, and I'm really happy with where we are so far with it. I think we made a lot of progress. A lot of good steps. I think we're at a good point. So I think we're it's getting there. Definitely getting there. So now with Lady Loki, like of course her lips, if you ever look at the comics, her lips are black. And luckily, the model that I found, she loves black lipstick. So it's like, oh, more cool, it worked out perfectly. So what we're gonna do, or what I'm gonna do, is I'm gonna do a light wash. I'm not gonna just go in there and automatically just smother black into this, because we want to still be able to see her lips. We still want to be able to see the, like, oh yeah, she's got lips. It's not just ink, black ink. So what I like to do is I actually, I get, you water the lighter. How can I put it? The lighter the color you want that you're currently using, I always say add more water. Dilute it. That's like the watercolor purists' way of using white. That's how they use white. They just add more water and dilute the color so that it shows up lighter, as you can see. So see, I'm really happy the way this turned out. Now I can breathe a sigh of relief because, I got to what I wanted to get to. She looks a little bit more complete. She looks a little bit more done. There's always that part of the painting where you're just kind of unsure and you're kind of unhappy with the way that it looks. But once you get past that one initial thing, you're like, oh, okay, cool, it looks great, it looks fine, we're going to be good, we're going to be fine, no worries. I can stop freaking out. Okay, so now that I got there, I'm going to go back in and start adding in the darker. I'm not going to add a lot because I actually want this to bleed. And the reason that I want this to bleed is so I don't have to add more paint in later. Which, honestly, it looks like I'm going to have to anyway. But it did the trick. And plus, you know, it makes it easier to blend. I really love blending. Love it. All right, so I'm almost out of time. So what we're going to do, I'm going to kind of do the eyelashes real quick, or at least get started on them, and then we can finish them up next week. Now the great part, you know, when you're adding in these details is, like I said, you breathe a sigh of relief because you're like, oh yes, it's almost done, or it looks so much better. You know, I'm so hard on myself as far as you know, critiquing and stuff like that. You know, it's kind of like, oh man, I could have done this differently, I could have done that differently, and you know, you always get to that one point or that one aspect where there's that one thing that you know gets you over that not eternal, external hump, I guess you can say. It's kind of like the same thing, you know, when people are dieting. You know, it's and I hate really using that term, but in essence, it's true. There is always that one point when you're in the middle of working on something and you're getting discouraged with it and you just don't want to do it anymore, but you keep going and going and going. It's the same thing with art. So when you get to a point where you're getting really discouraged with it, most of the time you can go to your, you just keep going, and then when you get to a certain point, like in my case, the lips and the eyelashes, you breathe a sigh of relief because, oh, okay, cool. It looks so much better now. It looks more like the vision that I had. So it just looks 10 times better. Okay. Okay. And I think this will be good for today. All right. I think this will be good for the day. Thank you guys for tuning in and tuning in to part 2. Stay tuned for part 3. Should be able, may not get to part 3 next week. I actually will be in, use your words, Robert. I actually will be in Raleigh next week for GalaxyCon. So if you happen to be in the Raleigh, Durham area, check it out. It's GalaxyCon. It's July 28th through August 1st at the Raleigh Convention Center in Uptown Raleigh or downtown Raleigh, or I live in Charlotte, so it's uptown, downtown. Anyway, so if you're in that area for those days, come on by and see me. I'll actually, it's my one and only appearance for the year. So I'll have all my stuff there. I'll have prints, koozies, books, sticker, you name it. Sky's the limit. I do have a commission list. It's on my website. You can get the link in the bio. Just go to Art Shop, click commissions, and shop there, and I'll tell you what number you're in. So yeah, check me guys out. Thanks for tuning in. This is part 2, Lady Loki. It'll probably be 2 weeks before I can get to part 3, so be on the lookout. If you're in Raleigh next week, I'll be at GalaxyCon, July 28th through August 1st. See you guys then.